Whiskey Jason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany, tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. And today I have a very, very rare and exotic whiskey, the first ever Dingle single cask outside of Ireland. This was a Kirsch German import exclusive. Yay! Whiskybase number 211363. It was distilled on the 17th of January 2021. It was bottled on the 10th of February 2022. So it's an 8-year-old Dingle. And it was matured exclusively, look at this, in Pedro Ximénez. So we have here 312 bottles. I actually tried to order 6 of these from the importer, and I only got 2. Luckily, I got 2. Yay. 59.7%. Now, my co-host of the only German Irish whiskey news podcast, Neil Zatt, he and we talked about that in our last podcast, and we tried to speculate about the price of this bottle. What is it going to cost? I said it's going to be about 180, maybe 200 euros. He said, oh, that's about right. 155 euros. Now, taking a look at the bottles that I'm going to compare this with, for example, I have here a Founding Fathers 8-Up with 58.3%. This is a 6-year-old bottling, a sherry. It's not Pedro Ximénez, it's Oloroso. And over here I have my favorite sherried Founding Fathers is from the Palace Bar. This was cask number 72 CEDS with 58.6%. Beautiful, beautiful things. I paid 200 and 230 euros for these. This 155. So it's actually a very, very good price. Yay. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a very brief history of the Dingle Distillery before we go to our tasting and our nosing. So the distillery was founded 2012 by Oliver Hughes. Unfortunately, he died 2016 due to a heart attack. With the second partner was Peter Mosley. His name is actually on this bottle here, distilled by Peter Mosley and Liam Lehart. Now, the 3 of those people had actually founded the Porterhouse Group in Dublin. They have their own independent brewery. They have some pubs in Dublin and so on, so they knew what they were doing in the alcohol business a little bit. So the distillery actually was built in an old sawmill on the outskirts of Dingle. Dingle's not big, so talking about the outskirts is a little bit of a nice thing. And they actually paid about €1 million to build the distillery. A good portion of that money was actually paid for by these bottles. What do I mean? They were the first persons in Ireland to do a cask program called the Founding Fathers. So they took 500 casks, sold them for 5,000 to 6,000 euros, depending if it's sherry or whatever, and that money they used to actually finance some of this, which was very, very nice. And this was the reason I actually got into buying casks in Ireland at all. So now this distillery is actually the very, very first independent distillery of Ireland after Cooley. So we had Bushmills, we had Middleton, and long time nothing, John Teeling started then Cooley more as a experiment and a proving a thesis that we can break the monopoly of Irish whiskey distillers. And 2011 he sold Cooley to Beam Suntory. And so Dingle became actually the first craft distillery in all of Ireland. So they are triple distilled. They have 3 4-side pot stills. They have 2 other pot stills for gin and vodka. And what I really, really don't understand, I'm going to have to ask, I will be there on the day that this video is released. I'll be in Ireland, and I will visit Graham Cole, the new master distiller there. He moved from Glenmory all the way over to Dingle, and they have a mash tun made out of wood. why. I don't know anyone in any whiskey industry, either bourbon, Irish, or Scottish, or German, that uses a wooden mash tun. All right, there's no automation whatsoever. Think of the Springbank of Irish whiskey. Yeah, everything is manual. That's why they now call that hand cut from the edge. From the edge is one of the furthest west points of Europe. And so the next thing after Dingle is basically the United States or Canada, however you fly or you drive. All right, so they have 30% single pot still, 70% single malt. And in the warehouse, they have about 5,000 casks at the moment. That's kind of really interesting. Goes off the pot, stills at 78%, goes into the cask at 65%, not the industry standard of 63.5. Yeah, all right, very, very good. So what we have is, that was a short history of Dingle. I love Dingle. Dingle is the reason I'm doing videos in English. A whole year I'd done videos in German. That's over 5 years ago. And then I realized, especially with the Dingle first release that I received a sample of, absolutely back then, no one was doing videos at all about Irish whiskey in English. I had done a lot in German, so I decided to start doing English-German, and that turned into one of the things. At the very beginning of my channel, what I would do is I would only do an English video if no one else had done it. And many, many times, rare and exotic whiskeys, that was the case. Now I basically always just do a German and English video. All right, so what we have here is the color. Now, the right hand, this one is the 8-Up. This is an Oloroso sherry. This is Pedro Ximénez. So the Palace bar is a little bit lighter, and you can actually see this is also then, it just says sherry on it. It doesn't say Pedro Ximénez. This does. I am excited about the price. 155 euros. I also have a bet going with my partner with the Irish News Deutschland podcast, Irish Whiskey News Deutschland, Germany. How many of these bottles will make it back to Ireland? I said about a third. Now, the problem is most of the shops over here only got 1-2 bottles. And so we'll see how many actually make it back. And because these are collector items. On the nose. Now, to be very, very honest, I do not get any Dingle. I get Pedro Ximénez, I get Pedro Ximénez, I get Pedro Ximénez. I like Pedro Ximénez, PX. But I do not, I get the brown sugar. I do not get those typical Hawaiian punch moments. Now, 2 other little things. For example, I have this Dingle here. This is a single pot still, cask strength. This is the 5th and the last edition here. It was only matured in bourbon. I owe you a video about this. Now, the other video I put out a couple months ago was the normal Dingle. This is their core range. This is 45 euros over here. This is single malt. They have that little straw man here. And it's always triple distilled. It's always a product of Ireland. It's always non-chilled filtered. Natural colors. So they're putting that information now on the label. And if you look at the back of this, you'll have all this very, very tiny print. On the back of this box, you have bigger print. What did they do? They just left out 2 paragraphs. I think that's kind of cool, yeah? So sometimes less is actually more there. So I'm not going to compare it to either of these. I'm just going to stick with my founding fathers here. Now, some of you are drooling that I still have these bottles. Don't forget, I paid $200 for this, $230 for this, and only $155 for this. All right. Okay. Now, the 8-Up, there's always a reason I don't like this. There's some sulfur in here. They sulfured the sherry cask before sending it to Ireland, and I always get that sulfur in there. A little of that matchsticks moment, which I don't like. The Palace bar, on the other hand, has no sulfur. No detectable sulfur, but it does have that very, very interesting oloroso herbal moment going on here. Less of the raisins. Here are the raisins. And here it's a little bit more of a, I don't know if there's a seasoning called Maggi, very big in parts of Africa, comes from Germany, very big as well. And that's what I'm getting here. Very, very nice. What I must admit is, was 58, 58, 59.7. no alcohol burn. Guys and girls of Dingle, whatever you're doing over there is very, very, very great. Now, during my trip over there, I hopefully may see a little bit of construction finally going on. They do have the permit to expand the distillery. They're not going to put in new stills. They're going to have to put in new fermentation tanks and optimize the system. At the moment, they're producing around about 170,000 liters of alcohol a year, 4 casks max. And after they actually rebuild, they'll be at 470,000 liters per year without actually changing the pot stills, because everything else, you can run the pots of 24/7, but if you don't have enough fermentation time, you just run them maybe 1 shift a day, 5 days a week, instead of 3 shifts a day, 7 days a week, and that changes everything. All right, so, and I hope they will actually be able to do that. They have the planning permission, they have the construction permission. A couple of the residents close by have actually objected to a few things due to, what is it called? Noise pollution, odor pollution, and traffic, increased traffic. I'm sure they'll be able to have a good, amicable solution will be found there. Cheers. Now, on the nose, I didn't get that typical Dingle Hawaiian Punch moment that I love. Here, I'm getting a little bit more. The composition of the flavors, 80% Pedro Ximénez and 20% wood/Dingle. I do get a little bit of that Dingle Hawaiian Punch moment going on here, but it's subtle. Or, no, not subtle, it's buried. It's buried underneath 8 years of Pedro Ximénez. That is an awesome cask. A first fill cask. Why would you buy a second fill Pedro Ximénez cask? Don't know. Very, very nicely done. I'm not sure if it was American or European oak. It feels like it was an American oak. There's more of a vanilla moment there than a dark chocolate. Might be wrong. This is a B whiskey. So, on a bad day, it's going to be a B- whiskey. On a great day, it's going to be a B+ whiskey. This is a B whiskey. I can dilute this down to under 40%. I still get more mouthfeel. I get more creaminess. I get less sweetness, which I find is very interesting, because usually when I dilute a whiskey from cask strength down to 46%, I get a lot more sweetness. Here, it's the opposite. It actually tones down the sweetness a little bit. Value for money. As I said, I expected this bottle to be about 200 euros. It's 155. I'm going to give this a C+. Now, sorry. If you know my scaling system, 1 is why haven't you bought it, B, buy it. A is why haven't you bought it, B, buy it, C, you can buy it if you want, D, you don't need to buy it, and F, why was it even produced? This is actually in the scale of things, hey, if you want to, you can buy it. Not all of us have 155 euros. I've seen it for 200 on some places already. Shame on you for going way above the recommended retail price here, but hey, there's only 300 some bottles. And if you have the money to buy that, if you're a fan of Dingle, if you like Pedro Ximénez, and you like cask strength single cask bottlings, me, this is the bottle you should be buying. Yeah, try to buy 2, drink 1, put the other one away and sell it on an auction site or flip it or whatever you want to do in a year or 2. I think this is going to be a collector's item. The first single cask from Dingle, which is excellent outside of Ireland. And it happened in Germany. Yay! So thank you very much, Kirsch. Thank you very much, Dingle. And thank you very much, Graham Cole, for picking out these barrels. I like this. So today is going to be a B, a solid B, going towards a B+. And there are some days, though, I do know that I'm just not in the mood for Pedro Ximénez. It's just too sweet. It's too overpowering. This today is absolutely right. And the 59.7%, smooth as a baby's skin. Mmm. This is the winner chicken dinner today. The Palace Bar was fabulous. I really, really like this. It's Oloroso, not Pedro Ximénez, but it's a good whiskey. 80 euros more. And also single cask. Mm-hmm. Mm. And a tiny little bit of bitterness towards the end. I was told that I think the majority of the founding father cask owners have not yet filled up their casks. They're waiting basically for the 10-year mark to do that. Many. I do have the feeling that 10 years in a first fill sherry cask or whatever cask it is, there's a bitterness going, there's a woodiness going on here, which I'm not really excited about. So, hey, those founding fathers out there, dally, quick. Get those casks in some bottles here before they turn into something you don't want to drink, a woodiness. Age is not, an age statement 12, 18, 21 is not everything. Sorry. Taste. The pinnacle. Irish whiskey. I don't know where the pinnacle is for Irish whiskey. I know the pinnacle for American bourbon, Kentucky, 8 to 12 years. Bam, that's the spot to have it. Less than 8, more than 12. That's to have that. Scotland, 15, maybe 18 years, especially if it's the first fill, second fill bourbon. Yummy from my tummy. Irish first fill, I'm not really sure. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be around the 8 to 12 as well. But it should be a little bit more. It should be 12 to 15. But these are getting a little, for me, oaky. The 8-year-old, perfect. I wouldn't have done a day more on that, to be honest. Mm. And that sulfur, that matchstick moment here is a little bit evident for me and detracts from that beautifulness of the Dingle. Question of the day, what Irish whiskies are actually bottled from Pedro Ximénez casks? I don't know many. Yeah, which casks, which Pedro Ximénez PX casks have been used in Irish whiskey so far? This was a beautiful cask. What other ones can you recommend? So this is Whiskey Jason over here in Germany. I hope you enjoyed this nice little review, and like, subscribe, and tell others. All the best. Bye-bye.